Welcome to the Gavel. I'm Terry Ikumi. Now here's what the National Assembly was up to in the past week, beginning with the Senate. Plenary was not held on Thursday as senators headed to Uyo, the Akwa Ibom state capital, for their retreat. The Senate on Tuesday and Wednesday, however, held full sit-ins where it confirmed the nomination of Mr. Olaolu Kayode as chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, as well as urged the federal government to declare a state of emergency on the menace of drug abuse in the country. Following the declaration by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime that about 14.3 million Nigerians between the ages of 15 and 65 are drug abusers. Details of these and the disaffection between the Senate President and the Chief Whip observed during Wednesday's plenary are contained in this report.
The order paper on Tuesday was bulky, but first, a motion of urgent national importance was moved by Senator Sumaila Kawo from Kano on the need to reopen the nation's borders with Niger Republic due to the hardship faced by border communities.
Aware that the border closure decision on 8 August 2023 has taken by the Economic Community of West African States as part of the measures put in place to frustrate the military junta.
The Chief Whip of the Senate, Senator Ali Ndume, then raised 2 points of order on the procedures of the Senate.
Just as a way of, advising the Senate on the way we do things.
The Senate President rules him out of order, and the satisfied Senator Ndume walked out of the plenary session. The Senate then went into an executive session which lasted about 2 hours. When plenary resumed, Senator Ndume was seated as the lawmakers considered a motion on the menace of drug abuse in Nigeria, which was raised by Senator Babangida Uba from Jigawa State.
The Senate regrets that the main drugs abused in Nigeria are mood-altering drugs or psychoactive drugs, performance-enhancing drugs, dependency drugs, as well as prescription drugs, whose side effects include addiction, trauma, mental illness, and oftentimes resulting in ill health, violence, and involvement in criminal activities, especially the discovery of more dangerous substances called kurkura in the north, while in the south we have what we call the Mpurimili. The Senate accordingly resolved to mandate the Committee on Drugs and Narcotics to engage the NDLE and NAFDAC to provide updated statistical data on drug abuse in Nigeria.
The issue of drugs menace in a society is very dangerous, and it has destroyed many societies. It is hurting the economy of many societies, even countries like America, countries like UK. Youths do certain things under the influence of drugs.
The pharmaceutical shops should be held responsible, selling prescription drugs to the younger ones without proper monitoring.
The committees on NDLEA, NAFDAC should work with relevant agencies of the federal government to immediately convoke a national summit to discuss the state of narcotics abuse.
On the second legislative day of the week in the Senate, the first business was the screening of some nominees of President Bola Tinubu.
I joined politics in 2010. By 2011, I was appointed as the Senior Special Assistant to the Executive Governor of Katsina State.
The senators sought clarification on some issues regarding the activities of the agency.
This office is going to be in charge of distributing this money to the poor and the needy in the society, the poor and the vulnerable group in the society. Mr. President, how sure are we that this money will be distributed equitably?
In your last appointment, the duty is to deliver 5,000 naira by monthly targeted cash transfer to 2 million homes across 613 local governments in 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. When I saw that, I knew that Nigeria has 774 local governments. I would like to know from you why 161 local governments were not covered.
Only one component of the conditional cash transfer, which is the base cash given on monthly basis, has been taken to its logical conclusion. The next component, which is supposed to completely uplift these poor and the vulnerables out of poverty, is the human capital development component of the program. So while all the poor and vulnerables that have been enrolled into the program are entitled to 5,000 naira, the next component of the program, it's not for every household.
Next, the Senate admitted the nominees for the chairmanship and secretary of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The senators questioned how they intend to pilot the affairs of the anti-graft agency.
In 2022, we are flagging over 2,000 something convictions. But all is minor crime that if you add up, does not total to one crime, financial crime committed by an individual, which I will not mention, and then the EFCC allowed him to go home on a self-recognition.
There are two salient questions that must be asked and answered. Number one, has the person committed crime? Has he committed financial crimes? If he has, then we have cause to investigate him. Whether if you are in the ruling party, if you dip your hands into what you are not supposed to dip your hands into, you will be called to question. Well, you are in the opposition, you swallow some paper that will not digest, you will also be called to answer questions. So you will not be seen as chasing a particular section or, send that, signal across to people that you are always chasing a particular set of people. And that's where we are going to balance the whole thing.
The Senate then took a decision on the nominees.
The nomination of Mr. Ola Olukoyede is hereby confirmed as chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC.
Outside the chamber, some of the nominees reacted to some controversies surrounding the nomination of Mr. Olukoyede as EFCC chairman.
He thinks that people will not just be visited because of political situations, but they will be investigated because, if they commit crime. If they don't commit crime, there's no point. So there's no going to be victimization of political opponents.
And then when we look at the dictionary meaning of cognate is relevant. Relevant qualification, relevant experience. Doesn't mean that cognate experience must be garnered or within the confines of EFCC.
Now let's move to the lower chamber, where something unusual happened on Wednesday as lawmakers convened for plenary, but immediately went into a closed-door session and emerged an hour later, only to adjourn abruptly while full of smiles. Also, the House confirmed the appointment of the board of the Niger Delta Development Commission and resolved to investigate the use of concrete for road construction as proposed by the Minister of Works. Take a listen. The one-hour closed-door session in the House of Representatives was linked to the controversy surrounding the cost of the official vehicles for members, which had generated negative reactions from the public. One lawmaker who spoke with Channels Television on the grounds of anonymity says the explanation from the leadership of the House was that the price of the cars was 119 million naira each and not 130 million naira. In the meantime, the House of Representatives is asking the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority to revoke the licenses of defaulting international oil companies for violation of extant laws and protocols of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Clean Development Mechanism and Greenhouse Gas.
The House is concerned that 2 years after the coming into effect of the Petroleum Industry Act, oil-producing companies have deliberately refused to make the necessary remittances as mandated by the PIA. The House is aware that the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission has awarded a penalty of $2,500 per day as stipulated by the Petroleum Industry Act.
Mandate the Committee on Public Procurement to to investigate allegations of abuse, breach, and violation of the Public Procurement Act 2007 in the engagement of consultant for the pre-shipment inspection and monitoring of crude oil gas exports from Nigeria, and report back within 6 weeks for further legislative action.
Meanwhile, the House on Tuesday confirmed the nominees of the board of the Niger Delta Development Commission. The House approved the nominations of the board chairman and 16 others after adopting the report of its ad hoc committee which carried out the screening exercise. During the final plenary session of the week in the House of Representatives, lawmakers considered a motion of urgent public importance for speedy justice delivery. The House is calling for the appointment of more justices for the Supreme Court.
Worried that the non-appointment of new justices to the Supreme Court has stalled expeditious, effective, and efficient justice delivery, impeded transactions and economic development, limited citizens' access to justice, put the current justices of the court under immense mental and physical pressure, and has affected the policy-making function of the court.
Meanwhile, the House is worried about the usage of concrete for road construction, which it says the Honorable Minister of Works failed to properly research on before pushing for its implementation.
Worried that the Honorable Ministry of Works' new policy on cement concrete pavement adoption without in-depth studies of the comparative advantages / disadvantages with asphalt may contradict technical specification, potentially leading to contract breaches and potential arbitration and litigation during a challenging economic time.
Lawmakers also considered a motion on the need to checkmate the state of insecurity in Wamba, Akwanga, and Nasarawa State, and resolved to urge the federal government to establish a permanent military police and other security formations to strengthen the security of the state.
Convinced that if the rising trend of insecurity and kidnapping is not checked, it will destroy lives and ruin the economic fortunes of the state. Call on the House to resolve to 1, urge the federal government to establish a permanent military, police, and other security formations to strengthen the security of the state.
In the meantime, the lower chamber is asking for a total ban on the local production, importation, and use of any educational material that contains such words that teach or promote lesbianism, gayism, bisexual and transgenderism in schools throughout the country. The action of the House is in line with the existing laws against same-sex marriage in the country.
Nigeria has cultural values. We need to strengthen our cultural values. This timely motion is needed to stop what is going on around the world. We need to stand firm. Some African countries are being bullied to join. We know of what happened in our sister nation, Uganda, where the Western world said they would not approve loans until they joined them in this act.
Mr. Speaker, as you said, in our generation, I will get personal and tell you that I moved my daughter from a school whose name I will not mention for obvious reasons. When I found out at the nursery level, they thought it was okay for bathrooms to be shared. I studied in America for a long time, and one thing that kept me grounded, and I'll speak for Honorable Shagaya, is because of our culture, going to Islamic school from the Christian side, going to Bible school. And when we were there, we respected their cultures and their ways. The only thing we ask for is when you are here, you do the same.
We cannot be importing cultures that are alien to our behavior. So, Mr. Speaker, this particular motion, I wholeheartedly will support it, and if need be, we extend it to our secondary schools and our universities.
The committee in charge of NCC should impress it on the NCC that it should be on our phones once we open it, that all these items displayed on our phone is illegal in Nigeria. It is being done elsewhere in the world.
Welcome back to the Gavel. Now, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives is urging the President to urgently appoint an Auditor General of the Federation for smooth operation of the office in line with the Constitution. Honorable Benjamin Kalu stated this when he represented the Speaker at the unveiling of the Public Accounts Committee of the House. Meanwhile, the House says it is in the process of establishing a tribunal to implement recommendation of its Public Accounts Committee. Here's a report. It's the unveiling of the Public Accounts Committee of the 10th House of Representatives. The Public Accounts Committee is the only committee which is a creation of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This event, which is in collaboration with the Africa Development Studies Center, is also a leadership training for members of the Public Accounts Committee.
We believe that with the proper human capital development, coaching, guidance, and resources, PAC will fulfill its crucial mandate in safeguarding public finances and ensuring appropriate utilization of public resources in line with national development and progress.
I will suggest that the House can support the committee's work by ensuring that the Auditor General for the Federation's annual reports, as well as other special reports, do not stop at the committee's level, but that after deliberation and review of the reports, they should officially present the outcome at plenary.
The indictment that probably will come out of this report is there are infractions committed by the executive. Now, so where do you take the report for implementation? If you want to report the executive to the executive, you may go nowhere. And one of the best global practices is that there is an implementation tribunal of the Public Account Committee. Again, I must also thank the Deputy Speaker who has prepared a bill, and that bill has passed through the first reading of the Public Accounts Implementation Tribunal Bill.
Section 85 of the 1999 Constitution as amended states clearly that the public accounts of the Federation and of all offices and courts of the Federation shall be audited and reported to the Auditor General, who shall submit his reports to the National Assembly. The Deputy Speaker representing the Speaker is worried that an Auditor General is yet to be appointed to fulfill this constitutional provision.
We cannot afford to have an acting director, overseeing director, or in whatever nomenclature he is described, to occupy that all-important position. So this is a call to Mr. President to look into confirming the person who is there now, or anybody of his choice, to take up the role of the Auditor General of this country. It will send the right signal out that this government is really ready to pursue taxpayers' money.
The Public Accounts Committee is expected to live up to its responsibility of holding government officials to account for the economy, efficiency and effectiveness of public spending, based on the reports made available by the Auditor General of the Federation. On Constituency Focus this week, my guest is Honorable Amadou Jaha. He represents Damboa Goza Chibok Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives. He speaks to us about the needs of his constituents and his plans to meet those needs.
My constituency's needs, as far as today is concerned, is the issue of return of peace and absolute security, if I can put it this way, in our various communities. I did so many motions. I contributed in so many discussions with the service chiefs and other related agents of cohesion all over the country to make sure that peace is returned to my constituency, because my constituency is the worst hit constituency as far as the insurgency is concerned in the Northeast. And in my own little way, to cushion the effect of the insurgency and to encourage people to go back to their various villages, particularly where there are relative peace, we embarked on schools development. Particularly, I built about 6 blocks of classrooms, if I can put it this way. I built 1 block of 3 classrooms in Damboa. I built another 1 block of 3 classrooms in Bohokura, Chibok. I built another 1 block of classrooms in Garu, Chibok. I built a block of 3 classrooms, office and store in Goza, and I equally built a block of 3 classrooms in another ward in Chibok called Kumurumbula. Then in the areas of health services or healthcare delivery, I was able to build 3 maternity homes, well equipped with an ambulance attached to each of the 3 maternity centers, 1 in Chibok, 1 in Damboa, 1 in Goza. When the removal of subsidy was announced by the president in Eagle Square, barely less than a month, I went to my constituency and distributed money for people to go and buy food because the hardship is too much. In fact, you don't need a soothsayer to tell you that people are not happy or people are hungry. You can vividly see on their faces. So I had to use that opportunity to go and see them, distribute wrappers to the women and some cash, and distribute cash to some household, heads of householders across my constituency. In fact, I spent about 3 days in my constituency doing that. I started with Goza and I moved to Chibok. Then the following day, I went to Damboa where I concluded. So in addition to what the state government is doing and the federal government is doing, then as a member representing this constituency, I feel I have a moral obligation to be there for my people. It's going to be a continuous something. My target between 2023 to 2027 is for my community to have absolute peace. It's for my people to go back to their various communities. They should pick the pieces of their lives and forge ahead. That is my target. And for me to achieve this, I need a lot of work to do, particularly in the area of security provision. I must make sure that all my discussions, my motions, and everything I can do must be security related so that people can have peace, because if there is no peace, there is no way you can have development. Secondly, I want to use this period to make sure that people that lost their means of livelihood have been recovered to some extent. The only thing is for you to identify their major occupation, which is farming. And if there is relative peace, so there is a need for people to be empowered in the areas of agriculture by providing them with agricultural inputs so that they can regain their economic status. Then lastly, for those that are traders, there is a need for us to seek for even loan, maybe a soft loan from relevant agencies in the country to make sure that they assist our people so that they can go back to their various communities and start their life as usual.
And that's all the time we have on the Gavel this week. Thanks for your time as well. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.